Okay, let's just dive right in. The world of crypto, honestly, it can feel like drinking from a fire hose sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. News just hitting you constantly.
Every single day.
And our mission here, with this deep dive we've put together for you, well, it's based on this specific stack of sources you shared, all from June 11th, 2025.
Exactly.
The idea is to help cut through some of that blast.
Yeah, take this specific snapshot, this single day's worth of articles, and really try to pull out the important nuggets, the signals and the noise.
What actually matters from this particular set of info?
Right.
Well, looking at what you've given us for June 11th, it's quite a mix. Fascinating stuff.
Seems like it.
We're seeing regulatory gears grinding. There's action on something called the Clarity Act in the U.S. House.
Mm-hmm.
And then over in Korea, the Bank of Korea is having some interesting discussions about stablecoin policy.
Okay, regulators are busy. What else?
Then you pivot to the builders, right? Specific projects, we've got Ripple's XRPL EVM sidechain getting close to launch, apparently.
Oh, interesting.
And Rumble, the video platform, making moves to integrate Bitcoin Lightning for payments.
Practical stuff.
Yeah. And of course, you can't ignore the market chatter.
Never.
There's buzz about potential altcoin ETFs. Solana gets a specific mention.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, a very bold prediction for Bitcoin. Michael Saylor's involved.
Ah, Sailor. Okay, that tracks.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty diverse picture from just one day's sources, maybe even contradictory in places.
It feels that way sometimes. Let's maybe start unpacking the regulatory side. You mentioned the Clarity Act in the U.S. House.
Yeah, what's the story there based on the sources?
Okay, so one article notes that a U.S. House committee advanced this Clarity Act. Now, the source itself doesn't give, exhaustive detail on the bill.
Yeah.
But the key takeaway is simply that legislation, aimed at providing regulatory clarity for digital assets, it's actively moving through the U.S. political process.
So lawmakers are definitely paying attention, trying to build some kind of framework.
It certainly shows focus, yeah.
Okay, so the government machinery is engaged. Does the source give any hint about why now, or what the impact might be?
It's pretty neutral on the why now. Frames it more like a continuing effort, really. The implication, though, I think, is that the industry's been asking for clearer rules, for certainty, and this is a legislative response to that.
So an acknowledgement, at least at the committee level, that things need tidying up, regulation-wise.
It seems like it. Yeah, refinement is needed.
Got it. Okay, let's hop over from Washington to Seoul, Bank of Korea. That feels significant, a central bank getting involved like this.
It absolutely is significant. The Bank of Korea governor, reportedly, met with bank chiefs specifically to talk stablecoin policy.
And what were the main points?
Well, the source highlights their core concerns, the risks that come with stablecoins, and how, if they become really widespread, that could potentially impact the central bank's grip on the financial system, their control.
Right, that makes sense. And there's a note here, too, about a potential new law allowing fintech firms to issue stablecoins pegged to the won.
Correct. That potential law seems to be the direct trigger for these talks.
Okay.
The central bank looks like it's proactively assessing what happens if non-banks start issuing these currency-pegged digital assets.
They're trying to get ahead of it.
Exactly. It's fascinating, right? Seeing a central bank not just watching, but actively gathering the key financial players to understand, maybe even shape the policy response before or as new rules are maybe coming down the pike.
Trying to understand the integration risks, maintain control over monetary policy.
Precisely.
Okay. So we've got the U.S. working on broader digital asset clarity legislatively, and Korea grappling specifically with stablecoins, their impact on the won, financial stability. That's the sort of official side.
Yeah, the institutional view.
Now let's shift gears. What are the builders doing based on these June 11th sources? Ripple's XRPL is mentioned.
Yes, the XRPL EVM-compatible sidechain. One of the articles says this sidechain is set to launch imminently, very soon.
Okay. And the source uses some pretty strong language, describes it as the most effective tool for major onboarding. What's that about?
Yeah, that's the framing from the source. It's presented as like a critical piece of infrastructure.
For what purpose?
For bringing users and developers from the Ethereum world, where the Ethereum virtual machine is standard, over to the XRP ledger.
Ah, the compatibility angle.
Exactly. The logic is if you make the XRPL work easily with the tools and smart contracts people already built for Ethereum, well, you dramatically lower the barrier for developers and projects to build on or integrate with XRPL.
Which hopefully drives adoption. more utility.
That's the goal, yeah. Make it easier for developers to come over.
Okay, that compatibility piece makes a lot of sense for attracting developers. Now, speaking of practical adoption, there's another source highlighting Rumble integrating Bitcoin Lightning.
Yeah, this one's a really concrete example, down to earth. The video platform, Rumble, is integrating Bitcoin Lightning specifically for creator payments.
Yeah.
And the source positions this as a step towards, mainstream crypto adoption, but in a very practical way, a real use case.
So instead of waiting for bank transfers or whatever.
Right. Creators could potentially get paid for their content instantly and with really low fees using the Lightning Network, which kind of sits on top of Bitcoin.
Interesting. So, okay, on one side, we've seen governments, central banks proceeding cautiously, analyzing risks, working on framework.
Carefully, yeah.
But on the other side, you've got companies actively building, implementing features for real-world stuff, like helping developers migrate or paying creators faster.
That's a significant contrast, isn't it? All captured on the single day, June 11th.
It really is.
It just highlights those dual tracks the space operates on. You've got the careful institutional evaluation happening, and alongside that, these practical sort of bottom-up integration efforts pushing forward.
And then there's the market side, which, based on these sources, seems to be on yet another track entirely.
Yeah.
Lots of buzz about altcoin ETFs.
Oh, yeah. One source references Bloomberg ETF analysts. They're suggesting the SEC could start approving altcoin ETFs maybe as early as next month, July 2025.
Wow, that soon. Any specifics?
Well, notably, Eric Balchunas, he's a pretty well-known ETF analyst.
Yeah, I know the name.
He's quoted giving a 90% chance for a Solana ETF specifically.
90%. That's incredibly high. Coming from analysts who watch the SEC all day.
It is very high.
What does that kind of prediction tell us about the market's sentiment captured on June 11th?
Well, it suggests a really strong belief, at least among these analysts, that the regulatory hurdles for certain altcoins, beyond just Bitcoin and Ether, are seen as clearing or about to clear.
Okay.
And it's clearly fueling speculation about an altcoin summer. That narrative is also mentioned in the sources.
Right, the idea that altcoins could rally hard.
Exactly. The thinking seems to be if ETFs open the door for easier investment, institutional retail into these assets, well, that could unlock huge amounts of capital into the broader altcoin market.
Right, that institutional access piece is always seen as key.
Yeah.
Okay, and then adding another layer to this bullish market sentiment, Michael Saylor.
Yep.
He's quoted in the sources. He's rarely understated, is he?
He is not. Saylor is quoted specifically pushing back against fears of a crypto winter.
Okay, so no winter, according to him.
His view, as the source presents it, is that Bitcoin has passed that phase of severe downturns and crazy volatility. And he states quite directly, Bitcoin could reach $1 million.
$1 million. Wow, okay. Let's just juxtapose that for a second with the cautious Bank of Korea discussions we were just talking about.
Exactly. It's quite the contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
It represents the extreme end of the bullish spectrum we see in these June 11th sources. Saylor's prediction is clearly based on a very long-term, very high-conviction view. Bitcoin as a store of value, transcending old market cycles.
It just highlights how wildly different the perspectives can be all on the same day.
Right.
Central bankers worrying about systemic risk and prominent investors predicting, exponential growth.
It really does paint that picture.
So, okay, stepping back, looking at this single day, June 11, 2025, just through the lens of these sources we've walked through, what have we pulled out?
Well, we've got these key threads, right?
Yeah.
There are the measured, sort of cautious steps from regulators and central banks, U.S., Korea, working on frameworks, assessing risk.
Okay, thread 1, regulation.
Thread 2, the practical, forward-looking building, development efforts focused on adoption, things like the XRPL compatibility, the Rumble Lightning integration.
Limiting the infrastructure, making it usable.
Right. And thread 3, the market view. Very enthusiastic, high-conviction speculation sometimes. Altcoin ETFs, massive price predictions, like $1 million Bitcoin.
Okay, so regulation, building, and speculation.
Yeah.
All happening at once.
And just sifting through one day's information like we've done here for you, it reveals the crypto landscape isn't just moving in one direction, is it?
Clearly not.
It's being shaped by multiple forces, sometimes conflicting forces, all at the same time. You've got these established institutions assessing risks, drafting rules. You've got builders focused on expanding utility, getting more users.
Yeah.
And you've got prominent voices making these massive calls about future value and market cycles.
It's a picture of, Caution, construction, and conviction,
Mhm.
all existing side by side on June 11th, 2025.
Exactly. And this simultaneous existence, these different dynamics playing out together, that's key to understanding the complexity of the space, I think.
It's not just one thing driving it.
It's not just regulation or adoption or market sentiment, it's how they all interact, how they bounce off each other.
Which, I guess, leads us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to consider, based directly on the sources we've explored today from June 11th.
Yeah.
Given these contrasting dynamics we just talked about, regulatory bodies carefully assessing risks, like with stablecoins, advancing clarity laws, versus market figures making these extremely optimistic predictions, $1 million Bitcoin, potential Solana ETF, altcoin summer talk.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, these practical adoption efforts, Rumble using Lightning, XRPL expanding compatibility, how do you think these different forces, the revel, the regulatory caution, the tech building, the market hype, how do you think they'll interact and influence where crypto goes to the rest of 2025?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Which signal, based only on this June 11th snapshot we looked at, which signal do you find most significant? Is it the regulators, the builders, or the market predictors? Something to chew on.